Today on Money Beer 4x4, we are testing out Harbor Freight's new game-changing tool. Hello everyone and welcome to Muddy Beards 4x4. I am Robbie and today we're in the shop testing out a new tool that I'm very excited to add to my repertoire, and that is this new portable band saw benchtop table from Harbor Freight. Now this tool is really cool because what it really does is take a tool that you already might own, a portable bandsaw, and just makes it way more versatile and changes the amount of things that you can do with it. And so I'm pretty excited about this thing. Now it is supposedly universal, so it's designed to adapt to any of the major brands, or at least most of the major brands of portable bandsaws, like my Milwaukee. And it apparently is very popular because I've been trying to get my hands on one now for a couple weeks and they've been sold out of all of the local Harbor Freights. I finally managed to get my hands on one the day it came off the truck. So without further ado, let's get this thing unboxed, all set up, and test out some of the things it can do here in the shop. One of the biggest questions I had about this tool was how long it was going to take to set up and take down, because I, like most of you, still want to be able to use my portable bandsaw for its intended purpose from time to time. But I was surprised to find out that this table came pretty much fully assembled. It did come with a few accessory pieces, some detailed instructions on how to set up your brand's bandsaw, and a bunch of different brackets in order to mount this thing to the table. I have a Milwaukee, so I'll be following the Milwaukee instructions, and it's pretty darn simple. We just unbolt the handle on the factory bandsaw here, and then I just simply replace it with the provided T-bracket using the fastener that comes stuck on your bandsaw. And this thing's ready to fit up after we go ahead and tighten it down. Now, I found that the easiest way to get this into the bandsaw table was just to feed it from the top and to tighten down the adjustment knobs in the back that actually clamp down the back handle or the rear handle of the bandsaw. And I just got them, basically tight enough that it's not going to fall over, but loose enough that I can make adjustments. And then I just hand tighten the screws that go through the top of that T-bracket, and then I can go and just kind of make my final adjustments. This did take a little bit of, finicky. I had to move it around a little bit, but it's all about making sure that blade is nice and centered inside the cutting zone. And then, of course, when I got it where I was satisfied, we just tightened down the knobs in the rear and tightened up those screws, and my blade was perfectly centered in the cutting zone. Well, check it out. We got this thing all set up and bolted into place. And after reading the instructions, when all was said and done, I said I had this thing put together in about 10 minutes or less. And I think that once you know how to put this together, you've gone through the adjustment phase quite a few times and maybe even put some marks on here, I think that you could definitely set this thing up in about 5 minutes or less. So this is still a portable bandsaw, it's not exactly quick disconnect, right? I'm not just gonna grab this thing right out of this table and use it portably, but the setup is not too big a deal to make it inconvenient. So after moving this around a little bit, we got it nice and adjusted. It does look like the Milwaukee one's one of the easier ones to set up, looking at the instructions, just with this little T-clamp here. And we got it nice and set up to where our blade is right in the center of our cut zone here. And right here, this piece right here, the guide bar, you want to get it as close as possible to the edge of your cutting plane here. That way we get the full length, of our blade or our cutting surface. So the only thing that I did fumble with a little bit here was this trigger switch. So there's this bar that goes across here into this trigger switch. Now let's see if I can do this with one hand. And it is kind of nice. I just had to fumble with it a little bit to make it fit. For the Milwaukee one, I ended up having to flip it upside down from what the directions show. But check this out. So if I can press our safety button here, see if I can do this with one hand. Just compress the button, and we just push And you can see it's locked into place in the on position. And then when I want to turn it off, just flick it off and it turns right off. So that is pretty darn handy. So now that we got this thing all set up, let's go ahead and make some cuts on it. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and try this out. I'm gonna try cutting a piece of tubing here first. So this is, I believe, 1 3/4. It's 1/8" wall DOM tubing. Something that, this is a material I might be using a lot in my shop. This would be good for, upper control arms, on a Jeep or something like that, a 4x4 rig, maybe you're doing some bumper work or something like that. So not super thick, but still a good hardy piece of material that might use. So we're gonna go ahead and undo our chain. Now you are gonna have to get yourself some sort of clamp. This is, one of, like a drill press clamp, but if you don't have one of those, you could probably figure out another way to do it, but Harbor Freight sells these as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this thing locked into place. And we're going to see how good a cut this can make here. And this should be just a straight 90-degree cut. Well, check it out. A good, clean, fast cut. And this thing, I'm pretty impressed with it right away. That was awesome. So another thing I really love about these, just the Porter bands in general, just a bandsaw in general. I mean, nice and quiet. It's not throwing sparks everywhere. It's fairly clean. Obviously, we got some metal shavings and stuff, but that was really quick and simple to do. And the results are this beautiful, perfectly straight cut. Don't worry about the tape line. The tape line wasn't exactly straight, but that is awesome. I like how the switch worked here. Just turn it right on and off. So that worked out really, really well. And this blade is not brand new, by the way, at all. And that was still a very quick and clean cut. So I want to try a couple other materials before we start moving around with this and see if we can make some angle cuts. All right, well, the first couple of cuts have just been amazing. If I want to make just a couple really quick straight cuts, this is very convenient to have. I mean, we basically have a horizontal bandsaw here, cutting pretty decent material. So I want to try out this feature, which is making angle cuts. And so all we have to do is loosen this handle, and then the degrees are already printed out here, at least 0, 30, 45, and up to 60 degrees. So I'm going to move it to a 45-degree angle here. I'll go ahead and tighten it into place there. And I'm going to go ahead and test this thing out. This is a piece of 2-inch, 1/4-inch wall DOM tubing. So this is stuff that you'd use for, like lower control arms and stuff like that. This is a big, beefy piece of material. And we're going to go ahead and put an angled cut on it. And so I'm going to load this up and see how quickly and easily I can cut through that. Well, check it out. That is a precision cut. That is pretty darn cool. I mean, this is a beefy material, 1/4-inch thick. You're making angle cuts. You're going through that thick material the entire way through. And it did take a while, but I mean, it's quiet. You're not shooting sparks everywhere. We're not making near the amount of mess. and that is a clean cut. There is no way I could have made that cut if I was just using the portable bandsaw alone. But being able to, clamp it into this, into this table, into this, into this machine here, just really, really makes this thing so much more versatile. And that is just very nice to be able to make a cut like that. And I didn't feel any flexing in this. The thing felt solid the entire time. In fact, this clamp is really not all that good, but because it's making such a good straight clean cut, this thing didn't want to wobble. I wasn't getting any kind of binding in the blade. Man, it just went through like butter. And that is going to be an amazing tool to have. If I wanted to make some pie cuts, doing some bumper work or something like that, that's going to be a nice precision cut right there. So this alone is incredible. I think this is awesome. It's well worth the money, but that's not the only feature, because this can also flip into a vertical bandsaw. Well, check it out. We now have a vertical bandsaw, our upright bandsaw, by simply taking and folding down what was the base of the table here on the hinge, folding it down. We can now set it up vertical, and there is a spot for hardware. So 2 bolts here down at the bottom. That is not provided. I did have to go get me some, but those are just some 1/2-inch bolts that go all the way through the table here and bolt up underneath. And this thing is nice and sturdy, as it's going to be at least on this table. And I probably need to come up with something a little bit better, but for demonstration purposes, I wanted to just get this thing mounted to try it out. So then what you have to do, at least on the Milwaukee, is you need to slide out the factory guide bar and slide it out as far as you can. And then what you're going to do is take the provided plate and the provided bracket, and you're simply going to bolt it up once you get everything nice and aligned and make sure the blade is right in the middle. Now, you do want to make sure that it is out as far as possible. That way you get as much space to work with as you can as far as that guide bar will go out. So I have this literally bolted to the very edge of the guide bar. But now a vertical bandsaw is nice for a lot of different reasons. I would probably use this more for like smaller materials, because you're gonna like feed it through. And what's nice is I can take something super small and with a lot of precision just kind of guide it through. And even a little bit, you could even make a little bit of some angle cuts and rounded cuts to an extent on a bandsaw like this. So I want to take some thinner stuff, like maybe I was cutting out some brackets or some tabs or some gussets, stuff like that. That's where this might want to come into play. And so I'm going to get this set up here, turned on, and practice making some cuts here with it set up vertically. All right, so again, I am very satisfied with the versatility of that. Again, this is some pretty thin material here. This is like, I think about 1/8 inch material, but just cutting through it just with butter and precision. I make quick, clean cuts, angled cuts like I did here. And even, again, the vertical bandsaw, to an extent, you can even, round it off a little bit like that and kind of feed it through and it doesn't want to bind too much, so it actually works pretty good. So again, if you're making some shock tabs or something, this might be a really easy way, an alternative to busting out that plasma cutter or the angle grinder. And so either way, once again, this is still quieter, cleaner, you're not shooting sparks everywhere, and while it's not completely just quick disconnect, I mean, to go back down to like, you know, the horizontal bandsaw, I'm going to show you here, it's pretty quick, but in a very quick way, we can set this thing up in a couple different orientations, and if I want, I can even ultimately take out the porter band and use it out in the field if I need to. And just like that, we have returned this thing back to the horizontal position very quick and easily. And again, if I wanted to now remove the porter band here, it's not too big a deal. I'd have to loosen the two bolts here, the T-bolts here, and simply just undo the two knobs here, and I could slide the whole bandsaw right back out. And I'd probably want to, of course, re-bolt on my handle for it. But again, in probably under 5 minutes, this thing can go from being a vertical bandsaw to a horizontal bandsaw to back to being a portable bandsaw. So I am totally stoked. I like this thing. I really truly believe that it's going to be a game changer for me in my shop, because really what it's doing is taking a tool that's already awesome, a portable bandsaw, and just making it a lot more efficient, making it easier to use, a little bit more precise, and really just more versatile. I can do a lot more things now with this saw with a lot more precision, and I think that's totally worth it. This bandsaw table or bracket, whatever you want to call it, from Harbor Freight is $100. It's $99.99. I think that's a killer deal for what you get out of it, and I'm super stoked to see what I can do with this thing. I think it's going to save me a lot of time in my shop. So if you agree, make sure you hit that like button, leave a comment down below. I'd love to know what you think about this. Any of you have this already? Do you have something similar? I know there are some products out there on the market that do essentially this, where they turn a portable bandsaw into, you know, like an upright table. But as far as I know, this is the only one that you can flip between both. And so I think that is pretty cool. And you know what? One of the things I think you're going to ask in Harbor Freight, and sometimes there's a lot of people that question the longevity of those things, but there's honestly not a whole lot that can go wrong here. The thing seems nice and sturdy. It did not flex even when we were cutting that really thick material, so I don't think I got to worry about that, other than a couple of hinges and a couple quick disconnects. I mean, again, there's just not really too much that's going to go wrong. So I think this is going to be a tool that you're going to be able to use for a long time, no problem, for $100. So let me know what you think down in the comments below, and until next time, we will see you on the trail.